So we've had the chance to play the Battlefront beta, and we've had a little bit of time to analyze everything. So today GameRanks wants to talk to you about the changes between the old Battlefront and the new Battlefront. The first thing we have to talk about today is the fact that there's no campaign. Now, we didn't learn there's no campaign from the beta or anything, but playing it definitely showed us what we are or aren't missing. Now, I'm not going to tell you that Battlefront has ever been specifically about the campaign. It has not. But that doesn't mean that Star Wars Battlefront 2's campaign was not pretty darn good. Being able to play as the 501st Stormtrooper Legion definitely gave us some insight as to the other side of Order 66, for one. It was interesting to find out that the Stormtroopers didn't necessarily approve of or feel good about mowing down all the Jedi.
What I remember about the rise of the Empire is how quiet it was.
That being said, it was a fairly rudimentary campaign. Essentially, you played the same kinds of battles that you did anywhere else in the game, with maybe an added objective or two. And when I say that, I mean it seriously. I'm not underemphasizing this in any way. That being said, it's not great to not have a campaign. Let me just flat out say this, I absolutely love the new Battlefront, but this is something that will sorely be missed by me. And I'm pretty darn sure I'm not the only one who's going to be saying that. Now, being we've talked about the lack of a campaign, the next thing I know people are going to talk about is the lack of space battles. Now, space battles were a really enjoyable mode. That being said, there were about 3 arrangements for capital ships, and that was basically how you won, was by taking out the capital ships or capturing them. Now, it's my hope that space battles were excluded for a specific reason. I hope they move forward and make them in the sequel with everything that they learned from doing the first game, because you have to remember that they are not the original developer of the game. This is a reboot, and they're trying to figure out exactly what it is that will make Star Wars fans happy. And while space battles is probably something that would make Star Wars fans happy, a well-balanced game that plays really well, in many discussions on the internet has been pointed out as a little bit more important than a variety of modes. Now, we definitely do want and need a space battle mode eventually. It will be missed, but I have a feeling it's somewhere in the plan, somewhere down the road. Another thing to talk about is the unlocks and cards system. So there is nothing like that in the original Battlefront, but this time around they made it so that you have to basically earn points by playing in order to gain access to some of the better stuff. For instance, the game's sniper rifle, the cycler rifle, is probably one of the first things that you get, and you have to be a certain level character with a certain amount of points to unlock that. Then you add it as a card to your arsenal, whereas in old school Battlefront, you had different abilities, weapons, etc. based on what character class that you selected. Now, as far as varied gameplay or customizing the experience to how you like it, I think that the new Battlefront definitely has an advantage here. I would pretty much stick to infantry in the old school Battlefront, whereas I've made some slight modifications in this one. I'm not using, for instance, any of the default blasters. My one hope for that, though, is that the customization goes deeper than the beta itself, which seems like it's probably the case because the beta only allows you to level up to level 5 and it takes you several hours to do so. Now, I don't think they've given any information as to what the level cap is going to be, but I have a feeling it's not going to be 5. A huge difference in how the games are set up. In order to get in a vehicle in the new EA Battlefront, you need to find a vehicle entry power-up, whereas in the old school Battlefront, you had to find a vehicle and get in it. Now, practically speaking, these aren't that different from each other. Both the vehicles and the power-ups spawn in their own place throughout the map. And I suppose the power-ups make some degree of sense, as when you enter a vehicle, what you're actually doing is calling for air support and then controlling the air support. But there's something that actually just feels a bit better about getting into a vehicle, taking off, and flying it out of the hangar and attacking the AT-AT. Now, I am not saying that the vehicles themselves are unsatisfying, because actually they're great. There's a few kind of control things that I think they probably could fix before the final game comes out. But in all honesty, I had a great time flying around in X-Wings and TIE Fighters. I actually never was able to get into a snowspeeder, but that's not the worst thing in the world. I had a lot of fun doing what I did. But it's definitely noticeable, and it's not exactly what I would have done. Is it a game ruiner? No. Not by any means, but you do get the feeling that it would be better the older way. Something that I'm definitely missing, despite kind of already knowing it wasn't going to be there, is Galactic Conquest. Earlier in the year, it was announced that that wasn't going to be part of the game, and we all kind of knew that. But I couldn't help but feeling, after playing individual match after individual match, that a series of matches that decided a winner or winning team might be a level of experience that would be enjoyable from time to time. Now the thing about that is it might be difficult to maintain a team through a series of matches, especially one that could go on and on and on like Galactic Conquest. And I have a feeling that that is the reason why we don't have a Galactic Conquest mode in this. That doesn't change the fact that I am really hoping that enough people request it that we do see some form of it, whether in DLC or in a sequel. Something else I noticed that doesn't really affect me that much because you can change the setting, but in old school Battlefront, third-person mode was default and first-person mode was something you had to set. In EA Battlefront, it's the opposite. You're by default in first-person mode. Now, I guarantee the hardcore players out there are more interested in first-person mode, but the people who love Battlefront, I don't know if you understand how much of a stink people made to make sure that third-person mode was included. This is what people who played the old Battlefront want. We want third-person mode, and fortunately it's included. And I set it to my default mode 100%. I'm not doing that. But it was kind of weird before I figured out how to set it. I had to switch into third-person mode every time I spawned. Now, when we talked about unlocks, I mentioned that the character classes are not really present, and that it's more loadout based. That's bound to cause some kind of a rift between different types of players, because in all honesty, I like that. But I could see why somebody wouldn't. With the different classes, you had kind of a customization over your team itself, whereas with loadouts, it's more individual-based customization. And that's obviously going to cater to different types of people, different strokes for different folks, so to speak. Aside from the semi-single-player experience, we've only played 2 gameplay modes in total. And aside from some unbalanced stuff in Hoth, in all honesty, I think we haven't really seen enough of the game to make too many judgments about exactly what we're dealing with. 9 million people played the beta, and supposedly the feedback is going to influence the final game quite a bit. And I would guess the balance issues that I mentioned are probably going to be one of the top priorities between now and November. We've really enjoyed playing the new Battlefront, and so have a lot of people on the internet. It's definitely a Star Wars fan's dream to have something like this work out. And in the end, we really hope that Battlefront represents Star Wars in the way that only a great game can. Hey Battlefront players, have you been around since the originals? We're really interested in what you have to say, so leave us a comment as to what you think, new Battlefront versus old. Which do you like better and why? If you didn't play the originals, don't let that discourage you. We're still interested in your opinion, please. Don't forget to click the like button as well as subscribe if you have not already. We upload new videos every single day, and the best way to see those first is to have a subscription to our channel. We thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, we will see you again next time here on Game Ranks.